A rollercoaster love life marked by tragedy and scandal. 8 marriages to 7 husbands. Here are Elizabeth Taylor's wedding charts. Part 2. A wedding chart is simply obtained by using the timestamp that a wedding begins and reading its astrological profile that will represent the marriage. As a child actress, Taylor's contract under Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer would foreshadow her Leo experiences. Taylor's Jupiter in Leo represents many romances with kings, yet in retrograde, bad romances. The Neptunian energy in Leo would add to the profile of the kings, addicted kings. Some of them were friends, ones with disguises and some who loved plastic surgery. Her Leo energy brought riches, gold and awards. She'd just finished her Jupiter dasha period, and within months after the tragic death of her last husband, Mike Todd, she would enter a 19-year Saturn dasha. A slow period of transformation, it usually begins with great sadness and loss, not to mention humiliation for all to see, including loss of reputation. The month this magazine dropped, centered around blame, her triple Saturn phase had fully begun. It wouldn't stop her from living the dream with the love of her life whom she was about to meet. Husband number 5, Richard Burton. Elizabeth Taylor would meet her 5th husband in grand scale on the set of Cleopatra, a movie about a queen, while still married to Eddie Fisher. The trio would be friendly on set, but was a dangerous combination that would almost get Liz killed. It was 1961, and the glamorous film star would be studying a script for her biggest starring role yet, as seen in her 6th house of work and health in her solar return calendar. Her 6th house lord is Uranus, showing big interruptions that year, like a change of script, location, actors and director. And on the set, many were under the influence of drugs. The 6th house of co-workers would indicate people under the influence at work. The 6th represents your co-workers, and Liz's co-workers seem to vanish at certain points on this job, a characteristic of Pisces. The South Node is representative of despair and purging in Liz's work life during that year. And with so much Pisces representing precipitation and hospitalization, Taylor would get sick after acting in nude scenes and would lead to life-threatening illness. Pisces represents a virus which she would contract on set. She would fight a famous virus years later. Multiple interruptions on set included a strike.
Cut!
By hairdressers represented by Leo. Uranus, the strike, also the symbol of haircutters. When found in Leo, the symbol for hair. Shockingly, Liz would win the Oscar in April 1961, seen by a magical grand trine glowing in her 10th house of career. Her life-saving tracheotomy scar was revealed at the Oscars,
Oh my God.
1 month after her operation. After she reportedly died and was revived on the operating table 4 times, her destiny calendar would reveal all, beginning on her birth date with each house representing a month. Her rising sign that year would be Virgo and predict health issues ahead, especially due to Virgo's Lord Mercury in retrograde that solar year and opposing the extreme and intense nature of Pluto and North Node attacking it. A closer look at Taylor's 6th house reveals the scar. At 2 degrees, the Taurus degree of the neck, Chiron represents marks and scars, and alongside the South Node of exits would allow fluid to escape so she could breathe. Mars, representing a surgery knife, trines Chiron, showing success. Uranus, in the Queen sign of Leo, also showing a split or cut, opposes Chiron and Pisces, the sign of photos. The world would see a photo of a faux queen with a scar. Now for predictions about the marriage. Fisher, shown by planet Jupiter, a husband, was vicious in his quest to stop Elizabeth from having love affairs once she began to recover. Saturn rules Elizabeth's 5th house of love affairs. Jupiter was conjunct planet Saturn, which blocked or stopped any wayward romance, and opposed the evil Black Moon Lilith. He wanted her to know the choice was him or death, Saturn. Fisher was also negative about her career as it opposed her 10th house. This would also be the beginning of Fisher's career demise, shown by the Saturn and Moon opposition. Taylor's 9th house of marriage that year rested on the nefarious fixed star Algol, showing addictions. Fisher would reportedly wave a gun around drunk and lose his head. It was the final straw for Elizabeth, and she walked out. The lord of the ninth house, Venus, pointed to a future husband represented by the future symbol, Uranus, and who would also have addiction issues, further expanding the Algol energy. Taylor's future husband would have a lot of hair. Leo. She was playing with fire. Uranus, conjunct the king degree of Regulus. Her future husband, Burton, loved to play royal roles. Taylor would begin rehearsals with her king in the latter part of January, as seen in her solar return 12th house. They would finally wed on March 15, 1964. Taylor was 32 and Burton was 36. This is the wedding chart for Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. The ascendant represents the husband and the descendant represents the bride. Although there would clearly be addiction issues in this marriage, as seen by the cluster of planets in Pisces, the union would be dubbed the Golden Couple, represented by Leo, and activate a powerful grand trine, boosting their finances and career. Especially when the ninth house of publications mentioned the couple. Venus trine Pluto is an exorbitant amount of money, and they would get richer and richer. The marriage would last a decade and be famous for their epic fights, seen by Aries leading the ninth house of marriage. The public, Moon, would hear all about their fights in worldwide publications. Burton was known to be a very angry communicator, especially to Liz. Books like Furious Love would be written about them, reflected in the ninth house of publications, but it wouldn't last. The clue that there would be two marriages. Mercury conjunct the ninth house lord of Mars. 2. They were both deeply in love. Their second marriage would last less than a year. The husband, Jupiter, would wear red on his wedding day, shown by Aries. The lord of the seventh house, representing the bride, is retrograde and opposes Jupiter, the husband. It was impossible. With Mercury trine Neptune in the ninth house of marriage, she took comfort in being under the influence and creating a fantasy marriage for the press. Their marriage was often described as performative, perhaps faking more romance than there actually was. They would find harmony on foreign cruises, denoted by watery Neptune in the ninth house of foreign lands. Jupiter represents the husband. Venus traditionally represents the bride. In a square, the couple would not be compatible and say or do hurtful things due to a Chiron conjunction. It was time for Liz to move on. She was 44 years old and a new grandmother. Her life was changing once again. She was exiting her 19-year Saturn period and transitioned to her Mercury dasha period. Husband number 6. This time she would fall for a famous politician, John Warner, and would settle into her next role as a senator's wife. What started out as a blind date at the British Embassy for a party in Queen Elizabeth's honor would result in DC's newest power couple after 5 months of their first meeting. The year was 1976. Her new husband was 6 years older. He called her his little heifer. She pretended not to be offended. Another king with hair who bullied her. But she liked having a home. She felt settled at first. Senator John Warner's political rise could be widely attributed to the star power of Elizabeth Taylor. Taylor needed a rebound from her last heartbreak with Burton. Warner fit the bill. It was a chance to ditch her Hollywood role and settle down as a farmer's wife, she thought, after she took a tour of his impressive Virginia estate. The couple married fast so Taylor could join the politician on the 1978 campaign trail as his wife. Years later, she would say the marriage almost killed her. This is the wedding chart for Elizabeth and her new husband, John Warner. The ninth house, showing the personality of the marriage, is in Capricorn, the winter marriage. It would foretell the type of marriage she was willfully accepting. Cold. She would feel shut out and isolated by a man who was married to his career. But was she starting this new chapter for revenge, as seen by Scorpio in the wedding chart? The couple were married at sunset in December 1976 in Richmond, Virginia. Once he secured his powerful and enviable position as senator, Warner's presence became scarce at home. He was ascending as a powerful king, as shown in his progressed chart, a familiar trait of Taylor's partners. The sun in Aries represented his role as the Senate Armed Services Committee chairman, and he was in charge of many foreign secrets. Neptune. He desperately wanted Taylor to keep her liberal views secret, including allowing women and gay soldiers in the military. She didn't want them to remain a secret and unseen. Neptune. She began to self-destruct with drugs upon her perception that she lacked value. The ninth house represents the marriage, and the cusp is in the sign of Aries. The ruler of Aries, Mars, squaring with unpredictable Uranus, would describe the emotional toll and angry upsets. It was time to move on once again, but she was stuck. Her family had to intervene to save her life. This dasha, ruled by Mercury, had been challenging so far. Her natal Mercury opposed Neptune, which would elevate her alcohol addiction to drug addiction. Her level of acute intoxication was so extreme that when doctors saw her health records, they were assuming they were looking at data of a dead person. After a 14-month separation, Warner and Taylor called it quits in 1982. They would remain good friends. She was about to shed this sad version of herself for the last time. There would be a light at the end of this tunnel, a new persona, a new husband, and a boost to her career. Taylor would slowly rebuild herself in the 1980s on the Broadway stage and becoming a champion for AIDS research. In 1986, she returned to Capitol Hill, this time as an activist, to demand $50 million in AIDS research and became the co-founder of AMFAR. She released a popular diet book detailing how she lost 55 pounds. Her budding friendship with another flawed king, the King of Pop, would boost her notoriety once more into the stratosphere. Flawed kings were always drawn to Elizabeth, ones with addictions, shown by Neptune. Jackson would die of a heart attack years later. Leo. In 1988, Elizabeth checked into the Betty Ford Center for a brief period. Betty was the wife of a former president, another king. Once again, she would address her addictions, and there she would meet husband number 7. Elizabeth enjoyed the company of construction worker Larry Fortensky. It was an unlikely union, as he was 20 years her junior. They became friends and found they had a lot in common. He popped the question after a few years of dating. He was 20 years younger. In Fortensky's birth chart, his Pluto sits close to the royal fixed star Regulus at 29 degrees Leo. He was destined to marry a queen. Venus traditionally represents the wife. You can see he would marry a wealthy woman shown by Venus trine Pluto. She would be older, as seen by Saturn. But would the marriage actually be fake? Was his supposed bride selling a dream to the press? When Michael Jackson asked to host the wedding of the Fortenskys at his Neverland ranch, the couple said yes. It was 1991, another new decade. 30 noisy press helicopters were seen overhead to capture the ceremony live. Jackson walked her down the aisle. This is the wedding chart for Elizabeth and Larry Fortensky. Larry is ruled by Neptune and Liz, Mercury. The bride and groom were caught up in a T-square, and there would be disharmony in the marriage. Pluto and Moon in the 9th house of marriage, another extremely famous marriage for Liz. They were married 5 years and divorced amicably. Fortensky as Neptune can be seen at the top of a kite formation in the 11th house of friendships and hopes and dreams. He was gaining many new friends. Some were fake, that he would meet at Neverland. If this marriage was for work purposes for Elizabeth, denoted by Virgo, it would be successful. Not by coincidence, it was the same year she would launch her best-selling perfume White Diamonds, the biggest windfall of her entire career. She would sell the dream, Pisces. After so much loss, romantic failures, and many lessons learned after long Saturn periods, Taylor would earn the highest award from the Queen and receive the title of Dame. Though she would weave fiction through her stories of heartache and make millions, she would change the lives of millions suffering from a deadly disease and build a legacy that will never be forgotten.